Hey folks, Justin from Tackle Tactics. Today we are looking at another ZMan plastic in more detail and how we rig and fish that plastic. And it's another ZMan favourite, the 4-inch StreakZ Curly Tail. So it's a curly tail plastic, as its name suggests, and it's got a big long curl tail, so loads of action in that plastic. So that's the 4-inch StreakZ Curly Tail, a versatile plastic that appeals to stacks and stacks of different species, from bass and flathead to snapper, mulloway, all sorts of different fish in between will eat that plastic. I've seen some cracker big flatties landed on it. 93 centimetre hit the deck during the Flathead Classic on this plastic, and yeah, a stack of big bass, snapper, all sorts of species. That curl tail is excellent for beginners because it's got loads of action on the sink and when it's sitting on the bottom and when you're retrieving it with a variety of different retrieves. So loads of action, great for beginners, deadly in the hands of experienced anglers, and it's 10 times tough and super soft and flexible. So that ElaZtech 10 times tough material means that you've got this long, soft, flexible tail, but it doesn't just get destroyed after a fish or two. It lasts for a long time and you can catch stacks of fish on a single plastic. It's also super soft and flexible, so it feels real. So the fish will often keep biting their way onto it until they find the hook. And it's also buoyant, so when it's on the bottom you get that tail up in the air moving around with the water movement and the current. So a lot of the time, even when you're doing nothing, the plastic is on the bottom working for you and fish will just pick it up and eat it off the bottom. So some interesting features of this one. Blows people's minds a little bit when they see it, and they see the tail design where the tail exits the plastic and instead of being straight, it's kind of flat like that. So the cool thing with that is it doesn't really affect the action when you're fishing it on a jig head, weighted or weedless, or however you're fishing it deep, because that tail's got loads of action. When you're fishing on the surface, it kind of flaps its way across the surface. So it's really cool rigged weedless and fished on the top through weed and lilies and that sort of thing for bass and barra and other species as well. So a very versatile plastic, a cool plastic, and you can see by the variety of colours I've got here, it's also a popular plastic in the range. So our colour theory that we base things on normally is that clear natural bait fish for that clear water and bright days. So we've got those here with our baby bass, our opening night, bad shad, pinfish, Houdini, pearl. There's lots of natural bait fish colours which excel in that clear water and those bright days where the fish get a really good look at your lure. Otherwise, we've also got some darker silhouette colours for that dirty water and dark day, like the bloodworm, mood ring, red shad, that new penny, which is also a UV reactive colour as well as being a good dark silhouette colour. And then from there we go into our fluoros and our real UV colours. So those fluoros will pop as well as the UV colours. So we've got our pink glow, hot chartreuse, space guppy, nuke chicken glow, electric chicken, and down into our midnight oil and our motor oil, which are really, really highly UV reactive. So there's an excellent colour range in that 4-inch StreakZ Curly Tails to suit whatever your application might be, and whether you're fishing that early morning late arvo light or the brightness of the day in clear water, or you're looking for that UV pop. So lots of colour variety in there for you. In terms of rigging this plastic, it is most commonly rigged on a 2.0 and a 3.0 jig head. So I know anglers that will fish it smaller. They'll fish it with a 1 or a 1.0 as a brim upgrade lure. They'll squeeze a bigger jig head like a 4.0 in there, even a 5.0 in there if they're chasing barra and those sorts of things. But it rigs beautifully on a 2.0 and a 3.0 for species like bass, flathead, mulloway, snapper, those sorts of key medium to large species that are commonly targeted. So on our 2.0 and 3.0, you can see it here. We have it on the Headlocks Finesse. And as we've discussed in the past, the Headlocks Finesse versus the Headlocks HD, our Finesse is our fine wire chemically sharpened black nickel hook, so all about penetration, light lines, light leaders, light drag settings with that Finesse jig head. Otherwise, we've got that brutal stopping power of the chemically sharpened black nickel hook in that HD version, the Headlocks HD. So as we've said previously, the blue on the top, black on the bottom is the Finesse, and those colours are reversed for the HD, black on the top, blue on the bottom, which makes it nice and easy to tell those jig heads apart on the shelf. There's also an L next to the hook size on the light and a H next to the hook size on the heavy. So light wire hook, heavy wire hook, and down here it says Finesse, here it says HD. So just important to make sure you're getting the right jig head to suit your application. So on a 2.0 and on a 3.0. So that 2.0 for species where they may have smaller mouths, we really want that hook not exposed so much from the plastic so they can get it into their mouth a lot easier. Whereas the 3.0, a good option if you want additional hook exposure to get that hook to find contact and pin the fish inside the mouth. So fish with bigger gobs that are capable of eating a larger hook, often a larger hook will get you a better hook set. So that's our 2.0 and our 3.0 in the Headlocks Finesse, the light wire hook. We step up and there it is in the heavy wire hook. So you can see the difference in the wire gauge on that heavy wire hook. So that is a brutal hook for stopping fish. So even though it's only a 2.0 or a 3.0 hook, you've got plenty of stopping power in there if you want to drop that down for a snapper and let that tail do the work. It's a fantastic plastic on a heavy head. You just punch it straight to the bottom and hop it around if the fish are holding down on structure. But things like early morning, late arvo snapper, you might want to lighten that jig head up and let that tail do the work and get that really nice slow fall, which allows the fish time to see that plastic coming, zone in on it and eat it. So yeah, very, very popular plastic for a stack of different species. That's on our 2.0 and our 3.0 in a HD hook for that stopping power. And then there's also painted head options that will fit this plastic, again with a 2.0 and a 3.0. So in our Demons jig head, so our Demons jig head has a finer wire hook if you're all about that penetration. Very, very popular on brim, bass, flathead, those sorts of species where you want that finer wire hook. And you can see there we've matched up those head colours with these plastics. So we've got our green head with our Midnight Oil, matches it really nicely. We've got our Mood Ring plastic with our purple head, so you can see that that also matches really well. So again, we can use that coloured head to match our plastic. That fits nicely on the 2.0. We've got it here on a 3.0, this time in a pearl with a pearl plastic. So you can use it to make a really natural presentation. Otherwise, throw that chartreuse head on there like we have there, get that real pop going with the head. That again is UV. So we're going to get that strike trigger, that real popping attractant to get the fish to come and have a look, but we've still got that natural pearl tail there. Or we can go all out. And there you go, we've got a hot chartreuse tail with a chartreuse head. So that's going to be hardcore UV. It's really going to pop in the water, and that's all about those active fish and triggering that strike. So we can step from that natural to a bit of pop to full UV pop. And that's on the Demons, painted head, 3D eyes, Gamakatsu hook in there. So a really good hook for pinning fish where it's all about penetration. Then if we want the heavy version in a painted head, we can step up to our big eyes. So our big eyes again offer us a selection of colours. So we can team up that chartreuse, say with the space guppy, you can get that really nice UV presentation. We could go something like that red shad with the black head with the glow eye. That's going to be an awesome presentation in dirty water, dark conditions, sinking it down nice and deep with those glow eyes as well in that darker presentation. And then something again like our pink with a pink plastic, matching them up, getting that full UV pop, or again using that pink head with a more natural coloured plastic just to get that head to pop and attract those fish. They come over and have a look and then they eat that tail. A really nice plastic for rigging as well. It's got a couple of unique features. So it's got that belly slot. So there's a big belly slot on this plastic, which is excellent for squirting some Procure in there. Just fold out your Procure nozzle and squirt it into that slot, holds the scent really well. It also makes weedless rigging really easy. And there's a hook pocket in the top there as well where you can tuck that hook in for weedless rigging. But it's a plastic that's quite easy to rig, and also with that big curly tail, the straighter the better you can get it, but if it's slightly off, you normally still get loads of action out of that tail without it spinning or anything like that. So on our standard heads, Finesse and HD, our Demons head for that finer wire hook, our big eyes in that 1/4 3/0 or that 3/8 3/0 hook for bit more stopping power from that heavy duty hook. They're an excellent presentation for snapper, mulloway, big flathead, that sort of thing on that 3/0 in the 3/8 or the 1/4 big eyes. And then adding flash and vibration, we can go with our Revlocks. So again, available in a 2/0 or a 3/0 hook, and that's the same hook as on the Headlocks HD. So it's a brutally strong mustard black nickel chemically sharpened hook, heavy duty hook, all about stopping power. And there we have that on a 1/4 ounce in a 2/0 and a 3/8 ounce on a 3/0. So you know, deep water bass or a bit more shallow water stuff, fishing edge bites and that sort of thing. That blade is an easy way of adding flash and vibration to your soft plastic presentation. So you can imagine that presentation there. We've got the blade for flash and vibration. We've got that big tail flapping around everywhere. There's a lot going on there to draw the fish in and trigger those strikes. So again, our Revlocks are available in a gold or a silver blade. The gold, excellent for dirty and tannin stained water, very popular in the fresh water. And the silver, very popular in clear water and also in the salt. In that longer, skinnier blade, which is the willow, which runs fast and deep, whereas the Colorado will cause lift in the plastic, but it gives you that slower thump in that blade to really attract the fish. Very, very popular in the fresh water, especially in that Colorado blade. But a good way of putting a spin on your plastic, which attracts the attention of snapper as that plastic's falling. You've got the extra flash and vibration. Excellent on freshwater species, and don't be afraid to run it over the weed beds as well for a big flatty. So that is adding a bit of flash and vibration, and we also have the option of adding a jig spinner. So that's our jig spinner. We simply clip that jig spinner onto the jig head, tie our line on there, and you can imagine again that big curly tail doing its thing with that blade spinning as well, creating flash and vibration. So there's going to be a lot of vibration and movement in the water, a lot of noise in the water to attract the fish to that plastic to come and have a look at it. So, you know, so at times I'll be chasing bass and I'll fish this jig spinner and flick it around. Might get the bite, might not. I can clip the jig spinner off and I can fish it without the jig spinner if I want a really subtle presentation. So it gives you the option of fishing really subtle with just the plastic, step it up with a jig spinner. Otherwise you can throw a reaction bait like a spinnerbait around, TT Lures Vortex or something like that for your bass, but that's a great starting point for a bass. And then this plastic is excellent rigged weedless. As I was saying earlier, it's got that deep belly slot, which means when you do weedless rig, there's not a lot of plastic that's going to stop that fish from biting down and moving that plastic because of that large belly slot. So the fish can easily move that plastic out of the way, find that hook, and away you go. You've got them pinned. And then in the top of that plastic, we've got that little belly slot, that pocket. We've got the pocket in the top there where we can tuck that hook point in. So you can see there's no chance of me hooking myself on there, but any movement and that hook point is clear and you've got the fish pinned. So I've got it here on a 2.0 and a 3.0 light. That's a Chinlock's finesse. So the finesse hook is a finer wire hook, and that there, the plastic has enough weight that on light spin gear you can cast that a long way. So there's actually no weight on that head, there's just the Chinlock that locks that soft plastic in place on the jig head. So this is a really cool presentation to swim through weed, lilies, timber, that sort of thing, where you know you're representing a lizard or a snake or something cruising through those lilies and the weed, and then boom, bass blows it off the top, or a barra eats it off the top. So there's no weight in there, so the plastic's buoyant and you can just swim it across the surface for that surface strike. And that's on the 2.0 and 3.0 in the Chinlock's finesse, and also a 2.0 and a 3.0 in a standard Chinlock. So that's a heavy wire hook. So if you're really fishing gnarly structure, or you're fishing fish with heavier drag where you really want to rip them out, you'll want to step up from the Chinlock's finesse to the standard Chinlock. So again, no weight, but a heavier hook on that Chinlock's. And like our Headlock's finesse and HD, the colours reverse on the packaging, making it easy for you to tell the light from the heavy. So we've got a 2.0 with an L beside it, which is the light. The 2.0 without anything there is the heavy. Red on the top, black on the bottom is our finesse. Black on the top, red on the bottom is our heavy. So when you're in stores looking at jig heads, it's easy to see when you're changing from one to another on the wall because of that switch of colour. And then you can just have a glance to see whether it says finesse series or Snagless series. And you can just have a look as well whether that L's on there for a light wire hook. So light wire, all about penetration, light drags, light line, light leaders and that sort of thing. Heavier, we go with our heavier hook. This is a cool presentation as well. I love this presentation around structure, timber, weed, lilies again, but where you want a little more casting distance, or you want that plastic to slow sink down into the structure. So that is the Chinlock's SWS. So the SWS means snagless weight system, and it's that belly weight there. So this plastic will just flap along on the top if you fish it with your rod tip up. Otherwise you can pause and allow it to slow fall back down into the snag. So excellent up north around mangrove structure and snags for jacks, barra, other species. Otherwise come down south and you can throw that for bass and other fish around structure. Also good for flathead in really shallow water fishing across the weed, where you've got that extra weight to make the long cast so you're not spooking the fish, and you can also fish it across the surface or allow it to just slow fall and drop into those sandy pockets as well. So that's the Chinlocks SWS, and again we're on that 2.0 and that 3.0 hook, fitting that plastic very nicely. From there we can jump to our, where we want a bit more weight, or we want a head weighted plastic, and that is our Snagless finesse. So our Snagless, basically our Chinlocks hook, no weight on the hook itself, but we've got a wire, through wire, stainless steel through wire on the front. We can clip it off and on. We can mix and match our hooks and our head weights. Oh, it's a bit tricky, come here. Oh, there we go, it's a bit bigger, I can get a hold of it. So that is our Snagless finesse. So again, that finer wire hook, we can clip that weight off and on, so we can carry a pack with us that contains a selection of hook sizes, a selection of head weights. We can mix and match it depending on what we need. So we might have a few 2.0 and 3.0 hooks there and a selection of head weights. So we might put on a 1/12, might put on a 1/8, 1/6, quarter, 3/8, half, depending on how deep we want to get it down into that structure, how much flow there is, how deep the water is, that sort of thing. So the cool thing, this plastic, as we mentioned, being buoyant, that weight will sit on the bottom and that plastic will float up off the bottom, and that tail just moves around seductively in the water movement. Give it a few hops, let it pause, float around. So you can move it a small amount at a time and keep it near the structure that's holding the fish, and then boom, they come and eat it, clear the hook, and away you go. Because it's super soft and flexible, no problem clearing that plastic from that hook. Clears very easily. So you can run it through some gnarly weed, sticks, all sorts of structure, but once that fish bites, boom, fish on. So that's a 2.0 and 3.0 again in our Snagless finesse. And then again, that colour reverses and our L turns into an XH as we change from that light wire hook to a heavy wire hook. We might be going from bass in structure and that sort of thing to jacks and barra, and really wanted to put the herd on and get those fish out of there. So that is our heavy wire. It says on there extra heavy, 2.0 and 3.0 extra heavy. The colours are reversed, red on the bottom, black on the top for that Snagless in the heavy. And that 2.0 and 3.0 again, fit it very well. Hook clears, fish on. So there you go. You can see that 4-inch StreakZ Curly TailZ. There is a lot of different ways we can rig it. It's effective on a stack of different species. Looks like quite a large profile, but once that long, thin tail folds away, it really is just a bite-sized snack. So you'll be surprised how many different fish will eat it. You'll end up with grunter, you'll end up with brim, redfin will smash it, jungle perch will smash it, all sorts of fish will eat this, and they just, that big tail sucks them in, they bite that, the tail just folds away into their mouth, and you'll even find a brim with that thing almost entirely in their mouth. So there you go, that's on a headlocks, 2.0 and 3.0 in a finesse and a HD, a Demons 2.0, 3.0, 3.0 in that big eyes if you want that heavy hook. Add a bit of flash on a Revlocks 2.0, 3.0, or throw a jig spin on there. Otherwise there's a wide range of Chinlocks, Chinlocks SWS and Snagless jig heads in that 2.0 or 3.0 size that fit that plastic beautifully. So there you go, squirt a bit of scent in that belly, get it out there and see what you can catch on it. All the best with the fishing.